This here's Bubba Bat, man, as you can well see. But I'm just so proud to be back with you. I know I missed last week. Brother Jerry had it all to himself, and he done that video on that little 22 rifle, got a lot of views and likes on that, and I appreciate that very, very much. But today's story is going to have something to do about another gun story. Matter of fact, this story has to do with Brother Jerry's proudest earthly possession. This is about a gift his grandfather gave him, and I've showed this picture before. We'll put it up here again of Brother Jerry's grandpa. His name was Mr. Herman Grammer, and he gave Brother Jerry a gift back in 1987 that to this day is still Brother Jerry's proudest possession. I'd like to show it to you. I got it right over here, down here beside me, so I'm going to reach over here and pick it up, okay? Now, as I look at that box down there in the floor, I'm going to call Brother Jerry's grandpa Paul, because I knew him real well, about as well as Brother Jerry did. And I'm just going to call him Paul in this story, because he was like a Paul to me, too. But after Paul built that box to put his rifle in, done got it unlocked, so I just opened it up. And man, he lined it. It looks like almost like a casket in there, don't it? But it was Paul's proudest possession too. He put that old oily shop rag on there to keep it in good shape. That is a Browning BAR 30-06. And let me pick it up here. And this rifle, it's got a 2 to 7 power old Redfield scope on it, and it's got a very unique scope mount on it. It pivots over to the side so you can use your iron sights if you want to. You aim down that way with the scope out of your way. But real neat. Matter of fact, got several stories going to tell you about this here particular rifle, but it's made in Belgium. The story begins in 1967. Well, let me lay it back down here. Now, this just for those of you who know, Brother Jerry don't take no chances with this, so he don't keep that gun in this box. He keeps it locked up in his gun safe, but he keeps the box stored away in his bedroom cabinet in there. But that's where Paul kept it, right there. We'll say more about that a little bit later on. But anyway, as I said, our story today begins in the late summer, early fall of 1967. Now, Paul had been reading up in some of his either Field and Stream or Outdoor Life magazines. He subscribed to them at time. There wasn't many hunting and fishing publications out there at that time, but he subscribed to that, and there were some advertisements in there about that new Browning rifle, and it's about to come out in that early or mid-fall, I think it was. Not too far away from the time that the story begins. And anyway, he decided after reading about it, he told Brother Jerry that they had been working on it, developing it for nearly 10 years. At least that's what he come up with when he told Brother Jerry. But they had perfected it and finally decided to come out with producing it and manufacturing it, rather. And he decided he wanted one. The only little deer rifle he had was a little 94 Winchester 30-30, but it wasn't a long-range gun, and he wanted one that had a little more power, one that could put a scope on, and that's what he decided. That's what he wanted. So he went over up to the hometown up there, and back then they didn't have no Walmarts or no sporting goods stores or nothing like that. They had what's called a Western Auto store up there. And the man that run that Western Auto was called Mr. Paul Mize. Now, Mr. Paul, he was a good man. He did some hunting himself. But anyway, Paul went up to Mr. Paul one day, and he said, "Paul, I've been reading up about that new Browning rifle supposed to come out." And he said, "I think I'd like to have you order me one." And Mr. Paul said, you know, I've been reading about that too. I think I'd like to have one. I'll just order me and you both one. And anyway, that's what they decided. He had Papa had already decided what he wanted. He wanted that Redfield scope and them Weaver flip over scope rings and mounts and everything. And so he had Mr. Paul go ahead and order a rifle. Now, just to show you, on this rifle, this was a grade 1. It had a plain side, just there was no engraving on it. And as you said, it's well worn. Lord, this gun's been shot a bunch and used a lot. But and that receiver was just a plain side. Now, they had a grade 2, had some engraving on it. Had like I believe a pronghorn antelope on one side and a picture of an elk head on the other, and it was a little bit fancier. Well, Papa was always kind of on the fancy side, he thought. So he had Mr. Paul order him a grade 2 and Mr. Paul a grade 1. And I'll tell you how he ended up with this. That's part of our story today. But anyway, he told Mr. Paul to go ahead and order him that grade 2. And so Mr. Paul ordered them both. And time was ticking by and hunting season was coming on the way. And not only was hunting season on the way, but this was the year of the election for a new governor in the state and of Mississippi. And anyway, Mr. Paul Mize not only was the owner of the Western Auto, but he was the area campaign manager for the candidate running for governor, Mr. John Bell Williams. And he thought a lot of Mr. Williams and was doing all he could to make sure that he was well represented and trying to talk people into voting for him and to get him elected. Well, Paul was for John Bell Williams too. But anyway, as hunting season got closer and the election got closer, Papa at the time was getting a little more concerned about hunting season starting than it was the governor election. So the clock was ticking, the season's just about to arrive, and the election's in early November anyway, and Papa wanted to get the rifle in time to go sight it in, make sure it's on, ready for gun season, but it hadn't come in yet. So he goes up there to Mr. Paul's store, and he said, Paul, listen, I gotta have that rifle now. How long you think? He said, it'll be here for too long. And he said, well, what about yours? You heard anything? He said, I've already got mine. He said they made the grade 2s before they did the grade 1s even, and I've already got mine back there. And he showed it to him, and it's just or the grade 1s rather for the grade 2. And he said this grade 1 they sent them out early. And Paul told him, said, listen, you keep that grade 2 for yourself. I'll go ahead and pay for it, whatever the difference is. He said, I got to have a gun. He said, let me just get your grade 1. Well, Mr. Paul said, no, they don't need that. No, you just be patient. Wait on, it'll be here before you know it. And you'll have your grade 2 and you'll get it fixed up for hunting season. Everything will be fine. And Paul just wasn't happy about it at all. But he left and he went back to his shop and Paul run a garage down there in the community out in a country about 6 miles out of town. And a lot of the men had come by and sat around and swap knives and gossip and carry on, in that old shop like they did up at the courthouse in town. And a lot of people depended on Paul to do their mechanic work for him. One day there's a feller here just a day or two after Paul was in there talking to Paul about, Mr. Paul about the rifle. And he was close friends with Paul and was helping Paul with the election, trying to get John Bell Williams elected. Now, what I'm about to tell you about what Paul did, just bear with me with this, but Paul wanted that rifle. And he knew that Mr. Paul was a big supporter of John Bell Williams. Matter of fact, Paul was for John Bell Williams himself and was going to vote for him. But he had also had some people come by the shop that didn't like Paul, John Bell Williams. And they had said some things about John Bell Williams that Paul knew wasn't so. It was just political gossip and as we say in today's world, fake news. And but Papa didn't lie, but he told that feller, he said, listen, he said, I was going to vote for John Bell Williams. And I thought it was a fine man, but there's a fella in here, a pretty reliable source now, come in here, and he was telling stuff about John Bell Williams, that if it was so now, I can't vote for a man like that. He was in here telling that he was a womanizer and wasn't honest and just all this kind of stuff. And I'm a Christian man, and I can't stand for such things as that. And so if that's the case, I can't do that. And that man said, Mr. Herman, you know better than that. You know good and well that ain't so. Don't you be saying stuff like that about John Bell Williams. You know that ain't so. He said, I don't know. It was supposed to be a pretty reliable source, he said. I'm going to have to think about this now. So anyway, the man didn't even, I think didn't even wait to get his car really working. He got in that car and he tore loose back to town. Paul knew right away what he was going to do. He knew he was going straight to Paul Mize with it. Here in a few minutes, Ma hollered. Every time they got a phone call, all the phone they had was a house phone down there at the old house, and Ma come outside and hollered, Paul, you got a phone call. Well, it wasn't 30 minutes. If it was that long, Mama hollered, Paul, you got a phone call down here. It's Mr. Paul Mize needing to talk to you right now. So Papa just kind of grinned, and he walked down that road, and he got there to the phone and said, yes, sir, Mr. Paul, can I help you? And Mr. Paul said, Herman, what do you mean? Even suggesting that about John Bell Williams. You know good and well that ain't so. He said, well, now, just like I told you, buddy, the man come in here and was saying them things, and he seemed to be a pretty reliable source. I just don't know about that. If it is true now, I can't vote for that, and I can't tell anybody else they need to vote if that's the truth. Paul said, you know it ain't the truth. He said, I tell you what I do. You was in here just a day or two ago wanting on this rifle and wasn't want to wait on yours. You said, if you'll just keep your mouth shut, you come up here and get this rifle, and it's yours, and just don't say none of that stuff to another soul about John Bell Williams. Well, Paul just said, okay, Paul, you got a deal. I'll be up there in just a few minutes. So Paul went up there, and he walked in that store, and he got his new Browning rifle, and he was tickled to death with it. So that's how Paul obtained his this Browning rifle that he was so proud of, and just built that box to keep it in, kept it slid up under the foot of his bed, and he took care of that thing, and got some more stories about that rifle. It's got a history behind it, and we'll share them at a later time. But right now, Brother Jared's going to come out here, and he's going to share a spiritual lesson from this and from this parable, and I hope that it'll be a blessing to you. So let me go get him. I'll be right back. Well, hello everyone. It's good to be back with you today, and I appreciate Bubba Batman sharing that story with you about my grandpa. I love reminiscing about him, and I miss him, and with the grace of God, one day I'll get to hug his neck again, and get to see him, and we'll never be separated from him anymore. He passed away on September the 3rd of 1995, and I miss him every day. But now the story about that rifle, and later on I got other stories like Bubba Batman said about that gun that goes back a long way, and even how Paul gave it to me, how I ended up with it, and what have you. But as far as that story is concerned, well, what Paul did, it kind of tricking Mr. Paul psychologically into giving over the rifle. And like I said, Paul didn't really lie, but he suggested something that kind of suggested that things might go the other way, and just the fear of that alone persuaded Mr. Paul, of course, to hand over that rifle to him and not wait on the other one to come in. But anyway, I want us to consider actually what was said concerning that man that came into my grandpa's shop. You see, the man came in telling some things about John Bell Williams, who was running for governor, and I was only nine years old at the time, so I don't remember a lot about the governor back then, of course, or a lot about him, but I've never heard anything bad. But it seems like we've just even recently in political election of our president and other things, we'll hear a lot of things said and accusations made and finger pointing and judgments made, and it just goes on and on and on. And the thing about it is, as we pointed out in a previous video when we talked a little bit about the tongue, these stories that come out of our mouths can do a lot of damage. Now, these things that we are prone to say about others or to say about one another, the Bible has a lot to say about it. Gossiping, backbiting, tale-bearing, and all of these things, and it's not referred to at all in any good light, but rather it's a very severe thing and very displeasing to God when we choose to say slanderous things about each other. I'd like to read to you a few words here from the psalmist David. In Psalms chapter 15, verses 1, well, the whole Psalms 15, it has 5 verses, 1 through 5. It says, Lord, who may dwell in your sacred tent? Who may live on your holy mountain? And he answers that. He says, the one whose walk is blameless, who does what is righteous, who speaks the truth from their heart, whose tongue utters no slander, who does no wrong to a neighbor, and casts no slur on others, who despises a vile person, but honors those who fear the Lord, who keeps an oath, even when it hurts, and does not change their mind, who lends money to the poor without interest, who does not accept a bribe against the innocent. Whoever does these things will never be forsaken. Here, David tells us the kind of people that please God and that God will stand up for, and how God is severely displeased with people who slander and run down others by the things they say and accuse them of these things, whether they're true or not. I'd like to also notice some of the words of the Apostle Paul from the Roman letter in chapter 1, beginning in verse 29. In this context, Paul is talking about the Gentile people, those who were not the Jews, not God's chosen people, and how God had given them up to a reprobate or a depraved mind because they had rejected God and just went awry to follow their own desires and will and all of the evil things they did. And notice the description of these people and the severe consequences of their choices. He said, beginning in verse 29, and we'll read down through verse 32 of Romans 1, they have become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are gossips, slanderers, God-haters, insolent, arrogant, and boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. They disobey their parents. They have no understanding, no fidelity, no love, no mercy. Although they know God's righteous decree that those who do such things deserve death, they not only continue to do these very things, but also approve of those who practice them. People who use their tongues and their mouths to slam others, to slander others, face severe consequences from God. It's very displeasing to our Lord as if we treat one another in such a way. And yet it's such a common thing. And it's so easy to do. In my lifetime, I can count on my hand and not use up all my fingers the number of people that I can honestly say I never heard one bad thing come out of their mouth about another human being. I'm thinking of a man that I knew when I was a minister for a church over in Alabama, in Lamar County, Alabama, that no matter what happened, no matter what anybody said or did around him, and no matter how bad it was, he not only would not speak evil of them or run them down or say anything negative. If he heard someone else say something bad, he would look at them and say, "We don't do that." And this was one of the kindest, most loving, gracious men I've ever known. You know, that's a rare trait, but one that God highly admires. You know, the Apostle Paul told us in Colossians 4 and verse 6, let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. You know, we just need to be kind and gracious. There's an old cliche, say, if you can't say anything good, just don't say anything at all. And that's a good rule to live by. And the golden rule is golden for the very reason, this same reason. He said, Jesus said, as you would have others do unto you, do ye even so to them. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You know, you don't want people slandering you and slamming you and accusing you of things. So why do we do it to others? But anyway, I hope this parable lesson is of some benefit to you and encourage you to think before you say something bad about someone else. And always just speak kind, gracious words. Let your speech be seasoned with salt, that it's got a good flavor about it. But anyway, that's all of our story for today. Other lessons coming up about Paul's rifle. And I hope that you'll find those stories entertaining and the lessons to follow encouraging in a spiritual way. But my prayer is that you'll have a good, wonderful day today and in the days ahead until we get back with you. I hope that you will subscribe, that you will give us some likes and share us with others. And our channel is growing, the number of subscribers, the number of views, and we're excited about that. And I certainly hope people are being lifted up and brought closer to God through this. But anyway, for now, this is Brother Jerry on behalf of Bubba Batman, and I hope that you have a wonderful, blessed day. Thank you.